Good morning. It is August 15th, 2025. And that traditionally for the old school industry, part of us has always been an indicator that it's the end of the 100 days. I would say that's not quite the case anymore. But the medium to long term weather forecast is calling for a cool down. And so maybe people can start to think about, hey, it's nearly done. But I think on a national level, it has been a very rough summer. Multiple reports this week, whether it was from field day events in North Carolina or industry commentary from the Northeast of the United States, where it has been an extremely rough summer from the standpoint of high temperatures and high levels of moisture in many locations. Not all, but in many locations. And so it may be that we are due a break. Online today, we've got Dr. Tyler Carr, Dr. Dave Gardner, and Dr. Xiaowei Wu. Dr. Wu, take it away with an insect update.
Good morning, everyone. Today I would just like to mention a couple of inquiries I have received in the past week. One inquiry was about change bugs from Michigan State. I hope that was from Ohio State. So that way I can go and collect some change bugs. I don't think that it's a good thing, but we are really in need of those change bug populations. Anyway. So there was an inquiry about change bug control. As I mentioned in the Top Team Times last week, pyrethroids and neonicotinoids were some combination products of containing both good options for control of change bugs. There was also another inquiry about white grubs. So in the summer, there was a mention about seeing white grub damage in the summer, which is a bit rare. If I would say first diagnose the cause of the grass death this year is a bit bizarre. We have a nozzle disease and also have pest pressure. So sometimes the damage can be caused by a combination of both. And so if I would say if the grubs are thin, if they're small, it can be if the tiny ones can be black turf grassotaneous, which is a concern on golf courses in low-cut turf. However, if they're big ones, it's very likely to be May or June beetle. So for curative control, I would say that the clothianidin at higher rate and also trichinophane are good options for curative control. And for preventive control, which for annual grafts at this time, preventive control can still be applied. The options include the neonicotinoids and infuranic diamides. Both are good options. And I've also received inquiry about caterpillars. Those it says to be for armyworm, but however, take a look at the picture here. On the left, this is the picture I have received. This is not a fall armyworm. This is a bronze cutworm. It's local to Ohio, and it can overwinter here under the cold temperatures. So this is a bronze cutworm, and here is a fall armyworm. You can see the white shaped on the head capsule, and also the dots and the strips along the body. So this is a fall armyworm, and this is the adult. What do you expect to see around this time? And typically in Ohio, we have a fall armyworm reporting about late August and September. So far, I have not received any fall armyworm alert yet, but you may want to keep an eye on that. That's what I have. Oh, by the way, for the control of the caterpillar pest, infuranic diamides are good options. If you applied these products for grub control after June, that should give you a good coverage until September. And also the pyrethroids can be used as a curative control as well. If you see these caterpillars at high numbers around, they can knock them down quickly. However, the efficacy do not last long. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. Dr. Gardner, weeds.
Hey, how's it going? Um, so when it comes to crabgrass control, I have often touted that mixture of Pilex and Drive, topramazone and quinclorac. Sometimes, though, one application isn't enough. So, in a year like this, where the crabgrass has a major competitive advantage, you see this is 14 days after treatment. It doesn't look like it's really done a whole lot. And so, remember that you can make a sequential application. So, again, this is a half a rate of quinclorac combined with a half a rate of topramazone. After 14 days, one application, it doesn't look great, but this is 7 days after the second application. These photographs were taken in last year, so these aren't pictures from the future. But you see August 23rd, 7 days after the second application, then that becomes quite effective. So while we hope that we can get crabgrass post-emergence with one application, sometimes sequential applications are required to get good control. If you have good goosegrass or basically a lot of the other grasses that you might be contending with, including field paspalum, a reminder that the mix that I was just talking about isn't something that I would generally recommend. You would want to use primarily topramazone by itself. You could also consider using phenoxyprop. Some other things to remember to mow to reduce the seed head development, particularly foxtail and barnyard grass are kind of going nuts with the seed head development right now, and they tend to be very tall. So if you keep those mowed, that's a good way of reducing the problem for next year. If you have Bermuda grass or nimblewill that you are thinking of trying to do something about, now's pretty much the time to decide whether you're going to go the selective or the non-selective route. With Bermuda grass and nimblewill, you can occasionally get good control. Topramazone is the one that this is specified on the label. Mesotrione, it's anecdotal that that will also work, but you need multiple applications over a several week period in order to do that. The other option is to use glyphosate. But I would say that we're kind of at the point this year that if you're going to use glyphosate and reseed, you can still do that. The sequential applications of either topramazone or mesotrione, that would be if you started today, you'd be talking about the 1st of October that you'd be able to go in and seed. And so that's probably not an option anymore this year. But again, you can still get those with glyphosate and consider reestablishing from seed. So speaking of that, when I was taking my turf class in 1991 in Iowa, we said that today was the beginning of the ideal seeding window time, and I think that might still be the case. But generally we've pushed back the window when we say that you can still get away with seeding. So it was August 15th to September 15th, and now we tell people until September 30th. So the point is that now is seeding time. With Kentucky bluegrass, it's better to have that in by September 15th. The others establish more quickly, so you can seed them as late as September 30th. But again, any renovations that you are planning on doing, if you have orchard grass or any other grasses that you can't selectively remove, now is the time to be doing that. With glyphosate, generally you want to make that application a minimum of 1 to 2 weeks prior to the seeding date. The glyphosate alternatives are a little trickier. Remember, a lot of those include active ingredients like fluazepop that have perhaps a longer soil residual. So read the label carefully. Sometimes you may need up to 4 weeks before it's safe to overseed in areas where you're using those glyphosate alternatives. And then creeping bentgrass is another one that now is the time to attempt to control that. So again, that is 3 applications of mesotron. You can also use glyphosate to control creeping bentgrass and then go in and seed. But if you want to try the selective removal with mesotrione, the way that you do that is it's 3 applications, 5 fluid ounces per acre, 2 to 3 weeks apart, depending on the species. With the third application, what you do is you put the seed down, you rake the seed in, then you apply the mesotrione, then you mulch, then you water. And mesotrione is both pre and post emergence. And so, one of the benefits of using mesotrione on bare soil in the fall is that it is a quite effective pre emergence herbicide against many of our grassy and broadleaf weeds. It might be too late if you're making the application in mid to late September to really do anything about annual bluegrass. The control with that is a little inconsistent anyway, but winter annual broadleaf weeds, you can certainly tamp those down with a pre-emergence application of mesotrione. And note that while this isn't well studied, it's generally understood that the residual with mesotrione is much longer on bare soil than it is on established turf grass. So I would not advocate the use of mesotrione as a general pre-emergence herbicide against winter annuals this fall. You'd want to use something like prodiamine or dithiopyr. But again, for an overseeding operation, that is one of the advantages of the mesotrione is that it will give you good control not only of the weeds that might be competing with your seedlings, well, but coincidentally, those sometimes happen to be the winter annuals that you're trying to control. Okay, I feel like I'm rambling, and so I'm going to stop.
You are correct in that assertion. Dr. Carr.
Thanks, Dr. Gardner. I'm going to follow up and talk a little bit more about overseeding too, and just seeding in general. So there's this, um, when we talk about seeding, we always preach seed to soil contact. We want the seed to be in contact with the soil. Soil holds moisture. We have improved germination and establishment. The big practice that we see a lot in the fall is aeration and overseeding. It's a very common practice. Either lawn care companies will go out and offer aeration and overseeding services, or you can rent aerators and seeding. And while this is a good practice, I'm here to tell you that there are other things you should consider too that go into this um, into a good establishment project or a good renovation project. So a couple other things that you can do, and I would do this in addition to if you're overseeding or and aerating before overseeding, is scalp the lawn, mow low, and this allows you to open up the canopy so you can so that the that sunlight can get down to the soil and warm that soil up and improve germination. It can be a little counterintuitive to think, oh, if I open the canopy up and there's more sun, it um, could dry the seed out a little bit faster. It could, but it does make it where the soil or the seed has a better chance of getting in contact with the soil. Um, Really big benefits of aeration, or I'm just going to call it core cultivation, is that it alleviates compaction. Many of our, like, let's say backyards where you have a dog running or heavy clay soils, very, very beneficial to aerate. But it's not a one size fits all approach. If you have a decently mature lawn that is a little thin and you want to add some seed to it, um, maybe you consider like a front yard, let's say, that you don't get any traffic on. This is where slit seating is a really good tool to use. So where when you aerate, you're just making a lot of little holes, like no longer than or no larger than about an inch in diameter in many cases throughout your yard. The benefit from aerating from the seeding standpoint is that the seed can make its way down into those holes, retain moisture, and germinate without the risk of drying out as fast. With slit seeding, you're creating many channels that have a similar effect, and you're actually drilling that seed into the soil there. And so just depending on what you want out of your overseeding project depends on if you should aerate before overseeding or split seed to bring your seed into the soil or even both. Something I also want to caution you on about this aeration before overseeding is depending on when you do that, it could increase the incidence of annual bluegrass or poa annua, and the it could bring that seed up to the surface. Slit seeding, if done too deeply, could do that. But if you're aerating and pulling 2 or 3 inch cores out of the ground, it could bring some of that poa annua to the surface. So some other things to consider um, in terms of these seeding projects: seeding rate. Make sure you have enough seed out there. If you don't have enough seed, you're going to be disappointed. So look online, try to find recommended seeding rates for whatever species you're using. You'll often see recommended seeding rates on the back and on the back of bags. So make sure you're seeding at those rates. And then irrigation. Last fall, it was really dry, a lot of failed overseeding or interseeding projects. And so that's why the seed to soil contact piece is important. If you don't get rainfall for a couple days, try to get some water out on this seed while it's really delicate. Um, so there are a couple resources we have online. Dr. Zane Raudenbush, it helped me out 4 or 5 years ago, created a series on our YouTube page, um, geared towards all the steps to renovating a lawn. We also have a blog series that we started 2 years ago, for lawn renovations and establishment. So a couple different methods there, for you to check out. With that, pass it off to Dr. Nangle.
Just one thing on the seed, folks. Quality of seed is important. And I did have a couple of conversations over the last few weeks with homeowners, and somebody said, "Oh, I thought all seed was the same." That is absolutely not the case. You want to be looking for seed labels that are giving you information on germination percentages and also recent year or year of testing. So if you're buying seed that has a test date of 24, 23, that's kind of getting into okay, not great. But if you're buying seed that has testing dates that are back in 22, 21, the quality of that seed is going to have declined as far as the rates of germination that are going to occur. So what you're trying to buy is the most up-to-date, newest seed at all possible. The other thing is, I see Dr. Carr with his hand. The other thing is seed type and grass species selection, that is in the bag. Now, it is somewhat based on the eye of the beholder, and the beholder in most of these situations is going to be the homeowner. What we would currently start to recommend most heavily at the moment is tall fescue, because of greater levels of drought tolerance, less inputs. But people who have time and ability to put that kind of effort into things like ryegrass and bluegrass, Kentucky bluegrass in particular, they may also provide a highly successful lawn. It depends. But what I would say to you is, if you're buying bags of seed that state that it has large amounts of undetermined or unlabeled matter in it, and it's not adding up to close to 100%, the recommendation is not to buy those bags of seed. The other one, with the only exception of soil erosion prevention, is anything that says Lolium multiflorum. You are not buying that for your lawn. That is annual ryegrass. I do not care about whether or not it has Italian ryegrass or annual ryegrass on it. What you're looking for is Lolium, Lolium, multiflorum. Hopefully, I got that right. If that is written on your bag, you are not recommended to buy that for a lawn. You will have it for very quickly after 3 days. You will have it for 6 months, and then you will need to go buy more seed for a new lawn. Dr. Wu and Dr. Carr both had their hands up. Dr. Wu.
I just want to follow up on the seeding. If you experience problems with the change bugs, the bill bugs, and caterpillar problems, I would suggest you consider about top rescue, because the top rescue contains the natural interface that can suppress above ground pests like bill bugs, change bugs, caterpillars. There are not much effect in below ground pests such as white grubs. However, above ground pests, it can be effective. So there's about a percentage that about 30–40% that seeds can carry, that can give enough suppression. However, the seeds, if it's more than 2 years old, the endophytes can be lost. So it's important to get fresh seeds if you are considering about that. Thank you.
Dr. Carr.
Okay, and this is something I'm kind of surprised we haven't touched on in the last couple of years. Sorry. And that's blue tag label for seed. Um, I see a lot of people talking about, oh, I bought this blue tag label seed. Blue tag does not mean that it is the best seed in the world. Blue tag implies that it is genetically pure, so that what you're seeing is what you're getting. Um, lot of good seed, most good seed is blue tag labeled, but there's also bad seed. And I mean bad, when I mean bad seed, I say not great quality turf grass. That's also blue tag labeled. So just because it's blue tag labeled does not mean that it's going to give you improved drought resistance, improved disease resistance. Um, it's essentially determining that the that it's genetically pure and that what is listed on the label is what's been certified.
Yes, that is a very good point. And again, just to emphasize, folks, in this instance, the cheaper price on seed usually means that the quality is not going to be as good. To if you want good quality seed, you're going to have to pay for it, and that is the only thing I can say. With that, oh, Dr. Carr got
Oh,
something else.
yeah, I have one more thing. We're on it right now. Um, Look on your seed and see if it's coated too. Um, I see a lot of I talk with a lot of people that buy certain amounts of seed, and on the front of the bag it will say can seed up to 2,400 square feet. But really, if you're applying it at the rates that we would recommend, you may only get 800 square feet out of that seed. And so a lot of residential big box stores, you're going to buy coated seed, and right off the bat, 50% of that bag is not viable seed, 50% of the weight of the bag. So instead of just looking at the front of the bag for the seeding rate, look at the back of the bag and get a good idea of if it's recommending the seeding rate based on overseeding or interseeding or bare soil. All of those play into the equation, because if it says up to 2,400 square feet, it's probably not a bare soil application. All right, I'm done.
I think this conversation prompts the need for a PowerPoint next week with both a seed label and probably a herbicide label that shows where glyphosate is versus mesotrione versus everything else. Um, all right, folks, we will wrap it up at that. Dr. Carr, you want to put up the contact details if you have them? Um, we will talk to you all again next week, and hopefully you've had some rainfall. I think for the most part, disease pressure has somewhat subsided, though I did see some data that said we've had the most amount of hours above 70 degrees since 2010. And that usually means we've had more problems with things like pithy and brown patch, um, which cause some pretty large scale damage. But the drying conditions that we've had, I would hope saw some kind of a subsidence on problems. If you are looking to reach out, don't be afraid to reach out with buckeyeturf at osu.edu, and then our social media pages, along with the website, buckeyeturf.osu.edu has all of this material up there as well. A couple other things just to mention last minute. Various golf events coming up for the industry, including the scholarship outing at Pine Hills in Cleveland area on September 29th, and the Ohio Sports Field Manager event on September 9th. Tyler, that's correct. That's going to be here in Worcester. So those are opportunities for you all to get involved. Thanks again, and we talk to you next week, folks.